Hello and welcome to the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans, and where the content is absolutely free. If you haven't already, please share the podcast where you can and give us a like on our social media platforms. I'm your host, David Wren, and we're fresh off the back today of a disappointing result at Easter Road as Rangers drew 2-2 with Hibs. Joining me tonight to go through that result and the rest of the news, which has been another busy week in the Rangers world, is my fellow host Colin Armstrong and Alec Anderson. Colin, how are you doing?
All things considered, not too bad, David. Not too bad. I've noticed Twitter's went into its usual meltdown after that result today, but I don't think it's quite as bad a result as people are making out. It's a wee bit disappointing. I think the manner in which it was achieved is disappointing. I think if it came back today, sort of maybe 1-0 down or 2-1 down and got the equaliser, it would have been viewed as a decent result. I think because we were 2-1 up and looking comfortable, and then it was, the nature of the goal, we've shot ourselves in the foot defensively. Goldson's made a bit of hash in it. Plus, it was offside. There's no doubt it was offside. That makes it disappointing. But I don't think it's quite the bad result that a lot of supporters on the Twitterati are making out. So, it's a sore one. It's frustrating, but certainly it's not a fatal blow by any stretch of the imagination.
Alec, in terms of your usual levels of misery, where are you in that scale tonight?
Well, to try and counteract my usual levels of misery, I've actually hit the drugs the night, boys. I'm on the bits of Whisper, Cadbury's Whisper, bite size, because it's just the only way I could keep myself up, keep myself off the rafters for long enough to come on and join you tonight. It's the only thing that was keeping me going was knowing I was going to have to be on here tonight talking to you boys for a bit of therapy. I'm also well aware that the last time I was on, it was the only other time this season that we dropped points.
That's you then. It's your fault.
So it's official jinx stuff.
Yeah.
But it's as I was saying to Colin off air there. I'm murder. Either way, Rangers win. 24 hours after we win, that's it. 55's in the bag. Just keys the trophy, no problem. Everybody's a hero. And if we have any kind of setback at all, absolutely dying off and thinking sack Gerrard, sack everybody. So I've had to hit the whispers tonight to try and perk myself up and be a bit more sober. Usually within the next day, once I've had a good night's sleep, I'm usually a bit more sober-minded about the whole thing. But it's far from the end of the world.
Well, yes, I do agree. And I think I actually only realised that we did go top of the league after the game today. So albeit Celtic have got a game in hand, but we have gone back to the top. But Colin, we'll go straight into today's game because I think it's still fresh in the minds of everyone. But obviously we went 1-0 down, bring it back there and right in the stroke of half time, and then we go 2-1 up, looking really, really strong. And then another poor mistake, individual error, which has cost us so many times. But in terms of the overall performance, I would say that maybe when we've dropped points in the past, certainly last season, we would have played for 90 minutes the way we played the first 20 minutes of the game. Whereas at least the performance levels, were up to scratch for large chunks. But at the end of the day, it still dropped points. So what was your overall thoughts on the 90 minutes?
I thought, by the way, I'm not on the whispers. I've got a gin in the tin here. That's what I'm on tonight. That's my therapy. A gin and a tin. So in terms of the game, I thought we started okay. I thought we looked pretty good early doors. I felt pretty confident. I think, as I've said early in earlier shows, I think the no fans is suiting us at the moment, and I thought we settled into the game. That said, when Hibs scored, I felt it had been coming. I just got a feeling we'd lost our way a wee bit. Really cheap goal. I think Barisic can stop the cross. When you consider how well we've defended in the first 7 games, we broke that 114-year-old record or whatever it was. To concede a goal like that was fairly poor. And I thought up until Morelos' equaliser, I was kind of fearful of, I don't know where it's coming from, you know what I mean? It kind of felt it was going down that Livy route, the sort of lots of possession, but not really doing anything with it. Got the goal. The second half, I thought we were very good. I thought we played really, really well. Created a few chances. we've got the goal, and I thought it was a really well worked goal. The nice wee sort of 1-2 with Hadji and Arfield in the box. Good finish. I thought Arfield played well again today. He came in last week, and at that point, that's the point where you think, right, we've done it. We've got ourselves in front. We took the early disappointment. We've got ourselves in front. Kent got that chance. I think he could have taken it in another couple of steps before taking his shot. And I actually feel, people were saying that the one with Arfield that he should have done better. I just think, the first one, he takes his touch and gets a shot away. When it comes back to him, I just think all he can do is hit it. You know what I mean? And the keeper's just got his hand to it. So I suppose you could maybe say it's a sitter. I think it's just one of those that, it's just came back to him. He's hit it and the guy's put his hands up. It's so reactionary that I don't know if you can apply much blame to Arfield in terms of a miss. But yeah, and you think, but even at that point, you think we're okay, and then just that silly mistake for Goldson. I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago about, like him and Tav have got these mistakes in them. They're pillars of consistency. They perform so well week in, week out, but then they make these catastrophic errors. And it was just such a lazy. It's almost like he just stuck a foot out and just gave it right back to the Hibs boy. I can't mind who he gave it to. And don't get me wrong, it's offside. It is offside. There's no denying that. And I think the linesman should see it. He's looking right at it. There's a bit of daylight there between Hollander and I think it was Boyle that was through. And we just don't defend it for then on in. So I think the fact that we were 2-1 up and lost it, that's the most disappointing sort of aspect of the game, I think. But as I was saying to Alex before we came on air, Hibs have had a really, really good start to the season. Everybody's been talking about the fact that we've not conceded any goals up until today. Well, Hibs had only conceded 3 up until today, and none of them had been for open play. So we've put 2 past them. It's just frustrating that after having such a good start to the season defensively, that we've dropped the points to such a slack bit of defensive or attempted defensive play by Goldson. But as I said earlier, it's not. I don't feel like it's the end of the world. It's just a wee bit frustrating. And overall, I saw enough positives today. I think Rangers over the piece deserve to win today.
Alec, when you look at the actual, Colin's mentioned there in terms of the defensive record and how strong it was coming into the game, and we looked comfortable in that second half, but were you surprised to see Goldson, firstly make that mistake proved costly, but also, he had a bit of a mad sort of 10 minutes after that where he just couldn't really do anything right, and it was quite interesting, to see him who, in my opinion, is certainly one of our best players, just lose his cool in that way.
It's strange. I don't know, David, if it's maybe down to the fact that this defensive record we've got, a lot of it's come from, I'm not trying to make it sound like a negative, but it's almost come from the fact that we haven't been tested. The front players have been keeping everybody really busy in the opposition. Goldson's been coming further and further forward. I know Lincoln Red Imps isn't really the best game to judge it by, but he's like, at times he was overlapping. He was going past Tav. I remember the Hamilton game. He took a mad swipe at a fella in the halfway line. I think it was about half an hour in, and took a booking, and it was almost as if it was just to get involved, as if he was kind of easily bored. Because that game, Hamilton weren't really doing much offensively in that game, but what they were doing for the first half hour or so, Big Hollander was just chewing everything up. He was just taking care of everything, and it was almost like Connor just had to get himself involved somehow, anyhow. And I don't know if that's what's maybe happened to him today. It's been a month and a half really, where our defence hasn't been really tested. I don't want to condemn them with something that's actually, of great merit, a great achievement. But it's almost like the Hibs were just kind of in about us today. And I hate this whole thing that, this Rangers team, they don't like it up them. They don't like it when folk get in about them. But it just looked like it was the way he was getting caught out. Apart from the actual goal itself, the second goal, the Hibs equaliser, guys were nicking in front of him. They were kind of getting there before him, as if he was kind of switched off, as Colin's saying, as if he's kind of slow and what have you. And I don't know if it's just a concentration thing. The thing with this, the way this team plays, or what Gerrard's game plan is, it's all very kind of holistic. It's all very, you defend for the front and you attack for the back. And I think if there's anybody kind of messes with our chi, so to speak, anybody kind of breaks up our kind of rhythm, I think everybody kind of suffers. I think it's kind of difficult to pinpoint. Well, it's obviously easy to pinpoint the mistakes that were made today, but I think it's difficult to kind of blame the defenders too much. It was like they've done their bit for the first 7 games of the season, and the day we're kind of looking for the attackers, the kind of forward players to dig them out for a change. Everybody in the park seemed to kind of do something today that was quite good at one point, and then they would make a wee mistake, or a big mistake. Nobody was kind of beyond criticism, but at the same time, nobody was completely terrible. I think when Goldson's knocking that ball forward so carelessly, I think he's actually, which leads to the second goal we concede. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to play it to Steve Davis, because the whole MO of this team is that we will attack. The ball will be kept in the deck, and the players at the back are attacking. They're looking to score goals. They're looking to set up goals as well. And he's doesn't excuse the fact that he's just hit it woefully short, and that's opened us up. But there's so many other factors coming into play, as you say. That's even you could even say there's two hands on Hollander's back. I'm not going to, I'm not going to agree about that, but it's the kind of thing that's usually an easy one for the referee to give against the attacking team. That usually 2 hands on the shoulder usually goes against the attacking team. It's an easy foul to give the defending team. And the offside, I mean, we're wearing a black strip today. It's a long white sleeve for the Hibs player, and the linesman's right in line with it. I don't know how he can't see it. There's no crowd behind him to distract him. The sun wasn't even shining to negate his eyes. There's really no kind of excuse for it. But it seems to be we are punished very kind of heavily for any kind of bad luck, and everything we get is kind of hard earned. But that's because we're the team. We're coming back. We're trying to chase things, and I think it's quite important to remember that, as we're saying, we're top of the league, and this is the furthest we've gone in any of Gerrard's seasons unbeaten. So, aye, it's not the end of the world.
Colin, just to follow on from that point we made there, but it felt like a very sort of Jekyll and Hyde performance today, and I obviously mentioned this at the top of the show, but we were playing. I mean, that second half display, certainly early on after we scored, we were playing some great stuff, and it was actually really, really good to watch. Some of the best actually we've played all season. But then, the goal goes in, and the next thing, we can't win a second ball. We can't do anything in the final third. It seems to be, it seems to be when the chips are down for this team, we're struggling to overcome that sort of final hurdle and get that, either kill the game off or at least chase that winner. Because after, the 79th minute, we barely did a sniff.
Yeah, and I would, you would have to say that that's probably a concern, but you also have to remember that, with a few players out today. I think Roof was a big miss today. I think last week against Dundee United, we really saw, or we started to see what he can offer the team. I thought he was linking up well with Kent, and he also worked quite hard. I mean, Alex was talking there about defending for the front. On more than one occasion last week, Roof was back in his own box, heading clearances and stuff like that. So he's a hard-working player who fits in well with us at the moment and complements other player. I thought Kent probably had one of his quietest games today this season so far, and that's maybe because Roof wasn't there. He wasn't getting the same sort of link up. Obviously Ryan Jack's not there. Aribo, it seems to me that we've been hit with a sort of a glut of injuries just at the wrong time. It was maybe our toughest test today. We're missing 3 or 4 really key players. I think it showed. There was maybe a bit of what you're talking about. Last, it felt like a lot of the stuff that we've seen last season. It actually reminded me a wee bit of that Aberdeen game at Pittodrie last season. We were 2-0 up and strolling it, and then when we just get one wee done, it all seemed to go to pot. We conceded the goal, and then as you say, the confidence just seems to go for some of these players. Their decision making goes out the window, and they look under P a wee bit. So yeah, it probably is a bit of a worry because it's linked to the mentality that we've spoke about for so long. But I do think we were missing a few players today, so I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if we had, even a couple of those guys back in the team. I think we'd have probably won today. I just think we had maybe one or two players in there that are not going to be starters every week, if you know what I mean. And it felt like a bit of a last season performance in terms of, not being able to get over the line. But I think if certain players were there, they'd be in a different result. I genuinely think Rangers were a wee bit unlucky today. I know what you're saying, the last 10 minutes, and it's a bit of a bugbear of mine. It seems to have been like this for a while. There doesn't seem to be any urgency when we're chasing a result. It just seems to be patient. And I get that. You have to say, right, there's plenty of time. Let's just keep going. But there does come a point when you have to say, you know what, we just need to find a way to win this game, guys. Just get it in the box and do what we've got to do. And a wee bit concerned, but like Alex says, I'm not panicking.
Just stay with you in this one, Colin, following on from that. But you mentioned Roof being missing there. And obviously, he's now potentially facing a few weeks out. If according to the media, how big a loss would that be? Because he's come in, and it's not just his goal scoring or striker play. It's more the overall package you get there from him and the way that he links up with the midfield and Kent in particular. How big a loss will that be if he's not available for selection in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think he could be a bit. As I said last week, I think that was his best performance last week, and really starting to see what he brings to the team. I think he's more of a team player than Alfie, and the whole Alfie thing's dragged on for so long. You kind of wonder if there's any way back, but then there might have to be now. If Roof's going to be out for a long period, we might need to hold on to Morelos, which could impact on other things because Steven Gerrard's been talking about that he thinks we need a midfielder, which I tend to agree with. I think that would be dependent on Morelos going or somebody going, before we would splash out again. So if Roof's injured long term, it could impact on that. And I just think last week he really started to show what he was capable of. And I'm kind of frustrated now because at the time when he went off on Thursday night, it's one of these ones, he goes down, he puts his hands up and you just think, right, okay, it's precautionary, it should be okay. But I was reading today that, it could be more serious and he's had real issues with his calf before. And you're kind of thinking, well, why are we playing him on an artificial surface against a team of bin men and taxi drivers? I know we want to get him up to speed, but I would maybe question if we've known that he's had issues with his calves before, we've had issues with players getting injured on artificial surfaces before. It was maybe the best decision to play him in that game if the impact of that is he's going to be out for the next 4 or 5 weeks. And if he is out for the next 4 or 5 weeks, you're talking about 6, 7, 8 weeks before he's back up to speed again. You know what I mean? Because he when he came into the team, initially he was a wee bit anonymous and you weren't seeing much. It took him 3-4 weeks to get up and running, and just as he was getting to that peak point, it looks like he's out. So yeah, I question the decision to play him on Thursday night against such a sort of low level opposition and on an artificial surface. So yeah, it could have huge implications for Rangers because I think he was starting to look like a very, very good player.
Alec, as Colin mentioned there, the Alfredo Morelos stuff is still very much up in the air. With Gerrard saying through the week that only Morelos himself and his agent know if he'll be at Rangers come October the 5th. But if Roof is out now, that's another conundrum in itself because if we sell Morelos, do we then need to look at other options, or do we go with the flow? There's so many added on things to this. But what are your thoughts on the Morelos situation? Because we've spoken about this, I think, in every podcast for the past 2 months. So something's got to give at some point.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing that we're actually in a situation where last week we thought we had too many strikers, and now we're wondering if we've actually got enough. It just shows you how quickly these things can change. We've gone for that situation. We're in that League Cup semi-final against Aberdeen, where Sadiq was up front. We're struggling to find a striker in the whole club, and we're obviously not going back to that. But you thought those days were long gone, especially Itten having his wee problems as well. He arrives, he's no match fit, that's fair enough, but then he picks up that injury. And the really annoying thing is, on Thursday night, again, I know it was only Lincoln Red Imps, we've got to take into account the standard we're playing against, but they had a wee, Itten didn't do anything, they end up, it was a kind of an exercise in fitness for him, but there's a couple of nice wee link-ups, him and Roof. It was the same in the game against Kilmarnock. They seem to have the basis of an understanding there. It's really quite frustrating that none of the two of them now have been able to have a kind of a full run at getting themselves totally match fit and getting that understanding up to the kind of next level. Again, as I was saying to Colin before we came on air, that game today looked like just the kind of thing that would have suited Roof. But he kind of, because of the way he comes deep and he kind of he's got that kind of bit of grit about him. But unlike Alfie, Roof looks like a guy who's streetwise. Well, Alfie's streetwise. He can dig out a free kick or get somebody a yellow card or whatever. But he has that wee edge where he'll just take a bit of a huff and he'll get himself sent off or whatever. Roof doesn't look like the kind of guy who's going to do that. He can get physical. He can get just hot and bothered enough to get an opponent into trouble. But he's not going to get himself sent off or anything. So you're in the position where you're quite glad that Alfie's got 3 goals in his last 2 games, because hopefully that will bang up his price. And if we could get nearer to the 20 million, you're maybe looking at spending 10 on a midfielder and or 50 or whatever, but have a bit of spare change left to get ourselves another backup striker. Because I think, as I was saying today, saying earlier on about today, the defenders have done their job this part of the season, and today it was just that wee cutting edge. We were wondering what was going to happen today. Was it going to be the kind of fatalistic side of you, kind of superstitious side of you? You're wondering, was it going to be this is the day where we concede a goal and it ends up being a winner for the opposition? When we finally lose our clean sheets record, or is it going to be the day where we unload on somebody goals wise? So now the clean sheets record's gone, it's gonna the onus is on the strikers to start banging goals in, and all these injuries really don't help.
Just on a point that Alex said there, Colin, but in terms of Morelos going, if we did get, for talking sake, 18 to 20 million, I mean, how much will Gerrard see of that? Because he's been back this season already, and the full point in this sort of model of buying for a low price and selling for a high price is that it keeps the club in a healthy financial position. So I don't know if we'll be seeing another Ryan Kent fee being paid for a player. But do you disagree with that? Do you think that the board will give him a fair chunk of the cash to go and splashing another player, or would you see it as maybe a couple coming in for a smaller chunk of the Morelos money? So we've already spent quite a bit.
I think it would be the latter, David. I can't see us spending the sort of money that Alex was talking about there, like 10 million on a midfielder. I think you've also got to take the current situation into consideration as well. Supporters only getting in, so revenue streams are way down. And you're not getting fans in the ground. You're not getting hospitality. All these provide decent revenue streams. So yeah, I think if we do get good money from Morelos, and that's becoming a bit of a if, because it just seems to have rambled on for so long, and the fact that Roof is now injured, you're maybe thinking we can't afford to sell him now. We maybe need to wait to the next window in January. But if we do get a decent fee for Morelos, I don't think Gerrard will get a huge amount of it. I think the club will try and take that profit and bank it, because we just don't know when this is going to end. This whole situation, it's actually gone back the way at the moment. You're seeing local lockdown procedures in place. I got pulled over by the police last week. My son was playing a game in Lanarkshire in Wishaw, and we were barely in the town, and I don't know if they've just done a check on my registration plate and realised that I wasn't from the area, but I got pulled over and questioned as to where am I going, why was I there, all that kind of thing. So I think the club, given the uncertainty in terms of moving forward and when there'll be a bit of normality and when that will reflect itself in the revenue streams coming into the club, I think if they get 18 to 20 million from Morelos, I don't think they'll be giving a huge amount of that to Gerrard to spend. I think he'll maybe get 2-3 million, and the rest will be banked.
Just lucky that you're quite used to getting pulled over by the police anyway, Colin.
I'll tell you this much, I would, I had that 20 kilograms of Class A in the boot, I was shite, listen.
Whispers.
It was all whispers, aye.
Yeah, so moving on, and we've discussed it slightly so far, but not so much the game itself. But that was the first game in Europe on Thursday there at Alec, and successful. 5 goals scored. It was good to see the team back in Europe, and to put on such a strong performance.
It was lovely. Yeah, really enjoyed it. It wasn't the greatest game in the world, but just to see Rangers doing what they're supposed to do is always quite reassuring. Just turning this into a kind of procession, and I think bearing in mind what happened today, I'm quite interested in the fact that we seem to be getting goals around about the kind of 20-minute mark in games that we go. I think the Kilmarnock game at Ibrox is the only game we've kind of gone on to win this season where we haven't scored we haven't been in the lead by like the 21st or to 23rd minute mark. And the other night it was just an exercise in fitness, but also you've got to kind of bear in mind there's always a danger if you take it too easy, or you put too many second string players. A team like this can hurt you, as we're neighbours across the city know only too well. I like the fact that the goals seem to be increasingly more indirect, if you like. Like a free kick pinged straight into the net from Tab, and then a free kick for Barisic put straight on Big Connor's head. He didn't even have to get off the ground to nod it away. And then it was a Barisic free kick, which Stewart knocked back across, and then it gets knocked in. So it was like we just kind of slowly ground them into their plastic, and when they started coming forward, we just kind of picked them off with ease. It's what we're supposed to do, but we've seen plenty of games over the years where we didn't do that kind of thing. So it was really nice.
Colin, I'll come to you on this point because we discussed it post match on Thursday, but the picture quality of the Premier Sports coverage wasn't the best, and they obviously put out apologies and things like that. But from a subscription service, it wasn't the best, was it?
It was atrocious, David. Sorry, I couldn't get my mute off there. It was atrocious, really, and they're blaming the host broadcaster and all that kind of thing. It seems to happen all the time with Premier Sports. You know what I mean? So no, it's unacceptable, and I genuinely don't think that like Premiership clubs down south and all the rest of it would tolerate that. I think Scottish football fans and Rangers fans especially, we get asked to fork out a lot of money, and in terms of the quality and the standard of what we get back sometimes it's just not good enough. Even in terms of the picture quality, you're fine with BT and Sky and stuff like that, but even the quality of the punditry, BT was atrocious last season. It really was. Chris Sutton's just an absolute joke, a pundit. And I know Andy Walker's not much better, but I do feel Sky's coverage has improved a wee bit this year. But when you compare the Scottish coverage compared to what our compatriots down south get, it's night and day, really. So yeah, it just feels like this season, especially when you consider, as I say, supporters and season ticket holders especially, they're coughing up money, but not, we don't know when we'll get back into Ibrox. It's good that Rangers are offering this TV service of $9.99 for a game or for normal punters. The season ticket holders have, we've paid full price for that. And some of our TV stuff, it has improved, but I've had some issues with streaming to my TV and stuff like that, and yeah, it's frustrating, because you're paying top dollar, and Premier Sports, I've never known a more ironically named broadcaster. They're far from Premier, and for a European game, I know it's only a small team, but for a European game to have problems like that consistently. I mean, it wasn't just one wee moment, it was consistently all the way through the broadcast. And towards the end, I think I chucked it with about 10 minutes to go. I think that's 5-0 up, doesn't matter. Yeah, I just sacked it because there was nothing. And then at the end, you don't even get any analysis. It's just like, we'll take a tenner off you, we'll show you the 90 minutes, and that's it. You're not getting any analysis or any interviews with any of the players or the managers or anything like that. So yeah, really amateur stuff, I thought.
Alec, how important is it going to be for the club and also these sort of subscription services to enhance their offering? Because obviously, as Colin says, at the moment it doesn't look like the pandemic is going to end anytime soon. So it's going to be even more important for these services to be tip top.
Yeah. I know. I can only echo what Colin was saying there. It was pretty disgraceful the other night. I mean, I as Colin's alluding to, we're basically paying for our season tickets. You're paying over £500 odd, and Rangers TV, you're getting the league games, the games that you get through your season ticket free on Rangers TV. I was already subscribed to Premier because I've just done that classic thing where I've subscribed to it because it's Scottish Cup, League Cup, thinking we were going to be in the two of them right up to the death. But and I don't unsubscribe, so I've got it sitting there. So I'm like, I'm not going to give any more money to Rangers TV for the game the other night. There's a lot of bears out there I know were kind of having a good laugh at me on Twitter the other night, saying, well, the Rangers TV picture's absolutely fine. That's what you get for giving your money to an Irish sports company. But I felt as if it was kind of offensive, the level. As Colin saying, they don't even say it at the end. There's not any analysis at the end. I think it's because they would have to spend the whole analysis apologising to us. I seem to remember, I think Premier, did they cover the Scoopy game or maybe the Maribor game as well?
I think they had all last season. They had all, because I had this last season. I subscribed because I'm sure they had the majority of the qualifying games, and then the minute we were in the group stages, it was BT that was covering it. So I subscribed to get the European qualifiers last season,
and it was bad then. It was
yeah,
bad.
it was really bad. Yeah.
The other night was the worst, and I remember they had the trophy Veolia, whatever it was, the tournament, the pre-season tournament we won in Lyon, and the same thing was that kind of effect, that kind of video feedback, a wee reference for the youth out there, the Bohemian Rhapsody video Queen did back in the day. Is that same kind of dragon effect, which is quite distracting because somebody was saying online, your only job is to provide the pictures of the football. So when you don't do that, you've totally failed. And I'm sure I read something that was the same thing happened with the Spurs game in Bulgaria the other night as well. They were apologising for the host broadcaster picture, and I don't know how they can have that same problem with two games altogether.
Two different games, yeah. I mean, the host broadcaster thing, I didn't buy that at all. They're a bit of an amateur mob. But I mean, I remember Satanta being a bit amateurish, but this mob seemed to take it to new levels. And last year, let's see, when I tried to cancel it after we qualified for the group stages, and she tried to cancel it. Honestly, God, it was horrific. And the only way I managed to cancel it was I lost my bank card, so I had to cancel my bank card. And so when I cancelled that, it cancelled all the sort of direct debits. So I got an email from them saying, "Oh, we've not received your payment. Can you set it up again?" And I thought, no, I'm not going to bother. And then what happened? Like 2 months later, the SPFL and the SFA announced that they've signed a deal with them to cover the Scottish Cup and the League Cup. And I was like, well, I'm now need to sort of subscribe to them. So I'm the same as you, Alex. I'm sitting there. I never watch it unless Rangers are on, but it's costing me a tenner a month.
Well, moving on in terms of Europe, the next round on Thursday we'll see us take on Willem from Holland, which will be another tricky tie for us. They currently sit in 8th in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. They won 4-0 today. Colin, in terms of this game, this has the makings of an extremely tricky tie. and given the next round could see us play Galatasaray, this would probably go down as one of the hardest runs that we've had.
Yeah, and it seems ironic that we've done so well in the qualifying stages previously, and the reward for that is to make the qualifying stages even harder for you. You know what I mean? So I think the nature of it as well. It's away from home, innit? It's in Holland, and it's the one-off nature of the tie. You know, that makes it dangerous. I mean, I think Gerrard and Rangers over the last couple of years, you know, the proof's in the pudding in Europe. You know, we've done really, really well. We seem to know how to handle these games, but it's a tough game. There's no doubt about it. You know, we played Feyenoord last year and beat them at Ibrox, and we probably could have and should have beat them over there. You know, we played really well over there. But, you know, the one-off nature makes it tricky, and then your reward for that is an even sort of trickier tie against Galatasaray. So I've got a wee bit of fear with Europe this season, I must admit. And in my experience, maybe I'm just being, you know, superstitious here to new levels, but in my experience, anytime we do really well in Europe, you know, the following year we kind of fall on our faces a wee bit. So, like, I remember 92, 93 when we came so close to getting to the Champions League final. We were like a goal away for reaching the final. You know, the following season we went out in the first round, I think. You know, when we reached the final in Manchester, the UEFA Cup, following year we were out in the first round. So yeah, there's different examples in our history of when we do really, really well one year, the following year, you know, all that expectations there. Oh, you know, we've got Europe sus, we can maybe go a wee step further this year, and it tends to go the other way. So I've got a wee bit of the fear that that's what might happen this year, you know, because we've done really, really well. I thought we were unlucky to get Leverkusen. You know, if we'd got a kinder draw, I think we could have went another round or two. So I've got a wee bit of the fear this year because just the nature of the games, one off, no fans, all that kind of a thing. It's going to be tricky. But you know, Gerrard's shown that he can do it. You know, that's one part of his Rangers managerial career that he's had licked almost since day one. You know, he's faced more than one tricky tie, even in the qualifiers. You know, not just in the group stages. So in that respect, you feel confident, but in another respect, you think we're bound to, you know, come a cropper at some point. We can't keep winning, you know, 4, 5, 6 qualifier games to get to the group stages. So got a wee bit of the fear, I must admit.
Alex, in terms of Europe this season, when you consider, you know, what's at stake domestically for us and the way we've started, actually, how important is Europe this season?
I think, going back to me kind of talking nonsense earlier about how much we're going to spend of the 20 million that I decided we're going to get for Morelos, try and dig myself out of that one. I think getting into the group stages would have a big bearing on how much Gerrard gets of any money we bring in. Basically, how much more Gerrard gets to spend, full stop. Even just on this midfielder he's after. I think it could be telling in terms of the problem we think we have with this squad. We're developing. We're on the up. We're pushing forward. It's still a building process. We're still kind of we're not the final product yet. But I think one of the accusations is, or one of the admissions by Kent after the Braga game last year, and in Tavernier's infamous kind of programme notes, is that, you know, we like it when the pressure's on the opposition. So you're going to get that in Europe. So I don't know if we get out of Europe early, does this squad just completely, does it affect them in terms of winning in Scotland not good enough for them? You know, are they going to be kind of bored, basically? I think because their temperament is the one thing I think that's to be questioned so far. So I'm worried about that. But at by the same token, you do think that we've collapsed after Christmas the last 2 years, the last 2 seasons. And that has to be the fact that by that point, they've played something like 28 matches in each of those 2 seasons in Europe. That's got to have a bearing. That's got to be affecting them. And I think almost like the breaks in Dubai have let them tap into just how how tired they are. You know, like if if you're having you've kind of been up all night, sometimes you're better just to keep going. You know, don't go to your bed and try to have a kind of 2 or 3 hours sleep. You'll just realise how exhausted you are. I think that's a big part of what's happened to us after Christmas the last 2 seasons is Europe coming back to kind of hit their legs. So in that respect, you're also thinking, I would never say getting out of Europe's a good thing. Losing any game is not a good thing, especially when you're, as I say, trying to kind of maintain an upward momentum under Gerrard. But I think that I wouldn't be overly worried if we did go out of Europe, particularly Willem II. There would be no disgrace to go to them. I think any Dutch side is going to be kind of technically proficient, going to be quite good. But particularly maybe Galatasaray. That's a name everybody knows, a European trophy winner in the past. It wouldn't be too much of a kind of blow to the ego if we went out to them. But instinctively, I want it. What Colin, I want Europe. I want us to do well in it. I really enjoy it. But I think we're at a stage in our kind of history just now where we need something domestically. We need the title, you know. And while I'm all for us winning in all fronts, I don't think it would be. I'm edging towards thinking maybe getting out of Europe is actually what we need to win the title.
See, another thing, sorry to come in, David, another thing from a supporter's point of view, we can't get to the games. You know what I mean? Europe's a big glamour night, and the last couple of years have been really good. I've taken my son to all the sort of group stage games at Ibrox, and I think it came up in my memories on Facebook the other day there. It was like a year ago yesterday or a couple of days ago that we played Feyenoord. Now, a couple of photos of Feyenoord fans. Like, I'd finished early, as I tend to do if you're playing in a European game. Ibrox, you know, I finished my work early, round a couple of the pubs in the city, meet my son, we go for something to eat, you know, and you really get a sense of the sort of, you know, the atmosphere and anticipation, and even like queuing at the subway, you can just sense it's a big night. We're not going to get that. You know, if we're in the group stages, the way things are at the moment, we'll all be sitting watching it on the telly. So I'm kind of like Alex, you know, I like to see Rangers do well at everything. But if we do get to the group stages, it's just another night. We'll be sitting in the living room watching it on the telly, and I kind of associate European nights with a bit more than that. So I'd be sad to see us go out, but I wouldn't be as gutted as I would be if we could go and experience those big nights at Ibrox, because they're so enjoyable.
Just on that point, Colin, as well, it's quite funny when you think back to the last game we would have enjoyed at Ibrox. In Europe, I mean, it's probably one of the most surreal nights that any of us will have experienced that game, given that the coronavirus, you know, crisis was just about to shut down every single league in Europe almost. And I think our game was the last game, or certainly one of the last games in Britain. So it's mad to think that even with this new season starting, that perhaps, you know, football is still not begun again. But just on, I'm going to come back to you, Colin, on Alec's another point Alec made there. The mentality of the players. Do you think that going out of Europe would affect that, you know, mentality in the league? You know, do you think there'd be a lack of, you know, a dent to the confidence in some way? Because I think we've had a bit of a bump sometimes from Europe, just that sort of way the results have managed to pull off the past couple of years.
I mean, it could have a sort of bump on them, but it also focuses in mind, I think. You know, as I was saying earlier on, you know, there's been times in the past when we've done really well in Europe, and then the following season we go out early. Now, the year we got to Manchester, the year we got to the final of every tournament we took part in, and we took the league to the last game of the season as well. We won 2 of the 4. You know, we won the Scottish Cup, and we won the League Cup. And we went into that following season really hopeful that we would do well in Europe again, because I think that's what happens, because Scottish clubs are so indifferent in Europe these days. You know, when you get to a stage where you've done really well, you think you've cracked it, and, you know, and just add a player here, and who knows, we could maybe go that stage further. And then we went out at the first knockings. It was against, who was it? That it was the Hearts owners team at the time.
Kaunas.
Yeah, Kaunas, and that set us up to win the league that season. You know, that I think taking away all those European commitments, it focused the minds of the players, right? We've got no distractions, we've got no European distractions. It's all about the domestic stuff now. That's it. It's simply about winning as many games on a Saturday and a Wednesday night as we can domestically. And I think, you know, there is an argument to say that if we'd qualified for the group stages of Europe that year, we might not have won the league that year. You know what I mean? It would have maybe just been a commitment too far. So as much as I'm all for Europe, I really am. I love the European nights. I think Alec's got a point. Every now and again, you know, it helps just not to worry about that. And we're maybe at that stage, as Alex is just alluded to there. You know, we're maybe at that stage. We need to win something domestically. I think Gerrard needs at least a cup domestically. I think if he has another barren year, then, you know, he could be looking at potentially losing his job. So in terms of the revenue for the club, it would probably be a blow if we didn't qualify for the group stages. In terms of what we could do domestically, I think it might actually go the other way. It might just focus people's minds and think, well, that's it. You know, we train through the week, we play on a Saturday or a Sunday, and then that's all we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about Feyenoord or, you know, Villarreal or Rapid Vienna or any of that. It's just domestic stuff. So it might go the other way.
Alec, just before we move on, we've mentioned it there, but, you know, Gerrard's record in Europe has been quite extraordinary, you know, in his time as manager. And you look back on, you know, some of the games, and certainly the ones that come to my mind, I went to all the home games over the past couple of years, even the qualifiers, which were all fantastic, you know, and you felt like we were back a bit there. But certainly for me, I mean, the best ones that come off the top of my head straight away were Rapid Vienna game and the Braga game. But there's lots of great memories to look back on.
Oh, it's phenomenal, and I think it's as Colin's been saying, we historically go out of Europe after having a great season. We have a terrible season. Even the ultimate season in Europe for us, winning the Cup Cup in '72, we didn't compete the following season because we got ourselves banned. You know, and I think that's when you look at what Gerrard's done to take us to within, you know, a result in Vienna for qualifying for the knockout stages from the first qualifying round after the previous season's embarrassment at Niederkorn. That in itself is a trophy, but it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's to the rest of Europe what Gerrard's done, and to then follow up by doing even better the following season. I think there's an argument you'd have to go back to the '60s to find two successive seasons that Rangers have performed to that level in Europe. The number of games they've had to get through, I think it's near miraculous. And to the rest of Europe, what we did there would count more than winning a domestic trophy in Scotland. But the rest of Europe isn't in Scotland. They know us. They don't know what's. It's kind of do a bit of Europe, then do a bit of domestic, and it's kind of building on building. You know, and the night against Rapid Vienna, for example, that kind of cinematic final goal. We're 2-1 up, and we're kind of, you know, not hanging on, but you know there's always a chance you're going to slip up. And you know, Candace, the back heel through to Alfie, and it's just, you've got the whole stadium, we're all up, and that thing where you hear the seats all thudding, or then the bucket seats thudding against the back of the seat because everybody's on their feet but they're holding their breath. And you're thinking, is he going to do it? And he kind of slowly, it's like kind of foreplay. It's a bit sexual, you know. Is he going to get there? He's getting closer and closer. The ball goes in the back of the net. The place absolutely explodes, and I think that we could all feel that was a night that we felt the old place was back. You know, the old Rangers were back. The old atmosphere in Ibrox was itself again, and that was a really cathartic experience. And it's kind of one of the reasons that Gerrard gets my kind of undying loyalty, because nobody else could have really brought that. He's a guy who scored in both European finals. There only was 2 European finals when he was playing in Europe. He's won both the trophies, you know. But the same token, you're worrying, he's a guy that never won the league as a player. And I think we're getting to that stage where we're thinking, is he only capable of European glory? You know, we need to see the league. But I think a part of it might also be, as Colin's alluding to, imagine getting AC Milan. Imagine getting Milan in this year's group stages and we can't play them. It's not just frustrating for the fans. I think a massive part of what we do in Europe is about packed stadiums. You know, we've got a team that likes it, as I've said, when the pressure's on the opposition, when they're not the favourites, and they just love a packed stadium. They don't care if it's home or away. And I think we could end up going out in kind of humiliating style if there's no crowd there. A properly good team could maybe do things to us that they couldn't do to us in a packed Ibrox. And that would affect our domestic form. So I'm not for 1 second saying that I want us to go out. I actively want us to go out, but I think Gerard's got us to a point where to do it this season, we've got enough in the bag. We've got enough kind of European ammunition in the bag, and we can concentrate on domestic stuff this season.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll see this Thursday how things go, but just to finish tonight, I wanted to discuss. I mean, ordinarily we wouldn't discuss another club's business on Gersnet, but there was an interesting interview published by The Athletic on Friday with the Celtic owner Dermot Desmond, and he raised a couple of things that were of interest to Rangers fans. I think I'm going to break them down a wee bit. Colin, firstly, I know that you had a quick scan of the interview. It was interesting to see him say that he missed the anxiety of the Old Firm games, and he was also quite complimentary of the team, the current team, and the manager. Not usually something that we would see from that side of the city. So it had a few interesting points in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in recent years, you know, people within that club, you know, your Neil Lennons and your Peter Lawwells. I don't think Brendan Rodgers was so guilty of it, but they really do play to the sort of lowest common denominator in their support. You know, I mean, even, you know, when we play them at Celtic Park, they don't even refer to us by our name. You know, they don't use the word Rangers. They refer to us as the opposition today. They don't mention the players by their full name. You know, it's just McGregor, Goldson, Tavernier, all that kind of thing. You know, they refuse to accept that there's such a thing as the Old Firm, which I have to be honest, doesn't bother me one way or the other. You know, what they think really doesn't bother me. I just expect more from a football club. You know what I mean? I expect that sort of stuff from supporters, but I don't really expect that from people within the club. But there certainly seems to have been that element within that club over the last few years. So it was interesting that he went the other way. But he's right. You know, whether we're prepared to accept it or not. You know, I'm not a Celtic fan. You know, I'm perfectly prepared to go on air and say I absolutely despise them as a club. They're my club's greatest enemy. I'm supposed to despise them, and I do. But I don't deny that they've been a massive part of my footballing life. Some of my best nights ever have involved Celtic because we've pumped them. You know what I mean? So to sort of, it seems to me that people within Celtic and Celtic supporters especially want it both ways. You know what I mean? They don't acknowledge our existence. They say we're a new club, but they're fighting like mad for tickets and moaning that other people are getting tickets ahead of them when games come up. You know what I mean? It's, to me, as a Rangers supporter, Celtic are a big part of that. You know what I mean? You want to beat them, local rivals. It's horrible when they beat you, and it's magic when you beat them. And I personally, I mean, I maybe wouldn't have said this, you know, when I was a younger man, but you know, as you get a wee bit older, you get a bit mellower. You know, Celtic have been a big part of my life. They have given me some tremendous hangovers. So, and that's what you want. You know, Celtic fans that are going on about 9 and 10 in a row at the moment, they're kidding themselves on. Because see, when they were getting 3 and 4, look at the attendances at Celtic Park. They were absolutely through the floor. You know, you were getting 15,000 at those games because it was shooty in. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a competition. You know, even to break it down into a sort of really basic argument. See, when I turn up to my fives on a Monday night, see if the teams are really imbalanced and one team romps it and another team gets pumped, you don't enjoy it. Nobody enjoys it. I've never really enjoyed giving a team a pumping when I'm playing football if you know the players that you're playing against are totally inferior. You know, if you know the sides are completely imbalanced. And the team getting pumped don't enjoy it either because it's not a competition. You want a competition, and I think he appreciates that. Plus, there's the numbers as well. You know what I mean? I think Peter Lawwell came out at the time saying it was costing Celtic 10 million a season with Rangers not being there. You know, and I think Dermot Desmond is a shrewd enough businessman to know that that's not good for his business. But yeah, it was interesting that he went the other way, because certainly others within that club play it slightly differently.
Alec, another one of the more interesting things that you said in the interview, and there was a few little sound bites that we won't get into, but this idea of a British league and the idea of Rangers and Celtic going to England came up again. Now, this has been something that's obviously been going around for a long time. Firstly, what are your thoughts on that as a prospect, and do you think it'll ever happen?
I think it's the old kind of turkeys voting for Christmas argument. I don't know how we're going to get in down there, especially just now. I don't know why they would want us. I can't help going back to Dermot Desmond and the whole Celtic thing that Colin's referring to. It's funny how they deny that there's any such thing as the old firm, because they don't want to be in a phrase even with Rangers. It ignores the fact that the old firm actually refers to. They're obviously looking at the old part of that and want to deny that Rangers are old because we're just formed in 2012 according to them, playing at the galleries as you say. But it's the old refers to the old firm refers to the fact that it's a business thing. The way that Rangers and Celtic can just bring the crowds in whenever they want, and the rivalry between us is first and foremost for these guys, for the boardroom, a cash generating machine. And here he is just tacitly admitting that the firm, the old firm is back together. Suddenly it's keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Suddenly they want to be up alleyways again, because Celtic are obviously downsizing just now as well. They should be winning the treble every year that we were in the lower leagues, but it's funny that they can only actually do it. They can only afford to do it when we come back into the top flight. And I am getting way sidetracked by my bitterness towards Celtic, if you answer any questions. But one thing I would say is I was always proud of Scottish football. I always liked being a Scottish team. I always liked being Scottish football. I had a basic affection and respect for all our opponents from Celtic, right down through Aberdeen and United, a lot of them. I was quite proud of their records in Europe. I wouldn't shout about it, obviously. But I never wanted us to go to England. I thought it would be an interesting experiment. But the way we've been treated by rival supporters and rival clubs since 2012 has really opened my eyes. I know we've certainly got a case to answer for our signing policy, what have you, through the ages, but there was no basic respect reciprocated to us. So if we can find a way of getting out of Scotland, I'd be sad. I wouldn't actively push for it, but neither would I fight it too strongly. And I think basically we would do a lot better than people expect. I used to think we'd just be another Sunderland and Newcastle, two massive clubs with fervent supports and a big derby, who've basically struggled against relegation and no won the league since 19canteen. But I think Rangers and Celtic would take it to a different level. I think we'd be up there within 5 or 6 years. I think we're up there challenging with them. It'd be also interesting to see how it alters the dynamic, how it alters how Rangers fans regard themselves. Because I remember us playing Everton many years ago, a friendly at Ibrox, and at that time we were all wearing England tops. I think Glasgow was the Rangers fans were making the England top that was sold in Glasgow more than any other city in Britain, and the Everton fans were all singing it as you can shove your effing England up your arse, So I think we would quickly find out that the kind of the quintessential British club thing would be thrown back in our face, and it might be interesting to see what it would do to the kind of the dynamic in our support. But I don't think it will happen, but I wouldn't be totally against it.
Colin, I know you're against it, but do you think that the opportunity would arise if this much talked about sort of European League was set up and some of the bigger clubs, well, certainly I say bigger clubs, but the richer clubs in England join something like that? Would then be the idea that clubs in Scotland and England would then join? Is that something that might arise in the future, do you think?
Whether it arises, I don't know, but that could be something that would give it some leverage. If 2 or 3 of the bigger clubs down there moved on, then they're looking for people to replace it. I mean, the thing that gets me is this is all about money, you know what I mean? And that's been my primary concern where all of football is going for the sort of last 20 years. Decisions aren't made for the benefit of the game. They're made for the benefit of the balance sheet and what brings in the most money and all that kind of thing. And that's why we're in a situation, well, not so much up here in Scotland, but down in the Premiership. That's why VAR's been introduced, because there's so much money riding on anything. And because Sky have 300 cameras at every game, you know, they're scrutinising referee mistakes to a whole new level. And now we've got VAR, which I just think it's a total farce, if I'm being honest with you. I think it just stops the game too often, and it doesn't always get it right either. So, but in terms of the British Premier League thing, I mean, I'm like Alex. The events of 2012 make me pretty much despise most Scottish clubs. You know, the way that Rangers were treated at the time was, and you know, you could say that we deserved a dose our own medicine. I wouldn't sort of disagree with that, but it was just the way it was conducted. You know, it was the way that people were celebrating and people were losing their jobs and stuff like that. And I just found it really distasteful. So I'm like Alex. I'm of an age. I can remember watching Aberdeen beat Real Madrid to win the Cup Winners' Cup. Now my whole family are all Rangers, and it wasn't just like my mum and dad. You know, aunties, uncles, my nanas, all that kind of thing. Everybody was Rangers. And we sat in that house and cheered Aberdeen to the hilt. And we cheered Dundee United when they got to the final in '87 as well. They got to the UEFA Cup final. But you wouldn't get me doing that now. You know, I think the bitterness that came out from 2012 was just too much. So in terms of wanting to play outside of Scotland, I feel like that sometimes, because I just hate the bile that exists here. But whether it would be good, I don't know. I'm yet to be convinced. I just think it would maybe be better if we focused on, you know, trying to make the product in this game, and I hate calling it a product, but if we try to make it the product in this country, a bit better, we would maybe be a bit better off.
Well, that's just about all we've got time for tonight. My thanks to Alec and Colin for joining me. If you enjoy what we're doing here, please subscribe or like us on social media. Previous episodes and tonight's show will be available to listen to on all your usual platforms as of tomorrow morning. Places like Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Castbox, and whatever else that you get your podcasts. And thank you for joining us again, and stay safe, whatever the future may bring in the next few weeks. Cheers and good night.